idea, and he contacted me about going in with him and do a synthetic interview type of thing, particularly in a video art installation piece. John is the programmer on the piece, and so we're working together. We leave in 2.5 weeks to set this up in Havana. So what it is, and this is slow, this is for some reason my computer. Originally it started off, we were going to do an oracle idea, like the ancient oracles. You come in and ask a question to an ancient oracle and they gives you some prophecy. And we were going to do it on Che Guevara. And then it became, well, we had to back off of that. Che is still a really hot topic in Cuba, and we couldn't touch it. So we kind of changed the Che idea into this guy. And if you don't recognize him, this is Andrés on that up there with a full head mask on. And he started out as Che, but then we kind of turned it into more of a cybernetic oracle without any reference to Che, even though the idea was it was going to be Che at what, 100 years old, 120 years old, something like that. So, but we backed off of Che, and what we came up with was just this cybernetic oracle idea. Based totally on audience participation, how they interact with it. And the oracle sort of stimulates interpretations of the past, and again, it's this sort of divination game where you are given your future. You are told, not even your future, you are told a prophecy of some sort, a words of wisdom that explores this idea of abstract thinking, conceptual thinking. It puts you in this space, almost like, and you guys, if you remember me talking about montage theory and visual story, where you have two very separate things together creates this third idea in your head. And that's sort of the idea that we're going for. Now, oracles throughout time have always been sort of depicted many different ways. Obviously, the Oracle of Delphi, so we start off with that. And then usually, apparently, researchers have proven that the Oracle of Delphi was built over these fissures in the rock, which would emit these gases. And the idea of the Oracle always being under some sort of drug-influenced kind of state was actually, they tend to think it's because of these drugs, these vapors coming up out, not drugs, but vapors coming out of the fissures in the rocks that would sort of induce these sort of kind of drug-induced states where these, and they always tended to be younger women, would get into these trances and be sort of like they're all high, they're all, it's like they're all on LSD of some sort or something like that. But again, like oracles have always been, depicted many different ways. Where's the audio at? There it is.
King is above.
So oracles, again, always young women under some sort of drugs, whether it's, other types of oracles that deal with religious churches, or I guess you remember, this oracle, right? It's a very different kind of oracle. I don't know why is the audio so low, Laxman?
Not quite what you were expecting, right?
Why is the audio so low?
Most died.
I can't hear it. We can't hear it here.
Yeah.
That's all right. But he says, are you the oracle? And she says, yeah, it's not what you expected. So that's the oracle, obviously, in the Matrix. The precog oracles in Minority Report. That sounds a little better. But oracles have been depicted all kinds of different ways through the years and through all kinds of different science fiction and historical movies and films. There's the machine oracle in Snowpiercer, which is the eternal engine, and he goes in there just to listen to the technology, the machine oracle. And there's other kind of oracle too. This guy has a lot of Botox, but he has a company called Oracle. But our oracle is more conceived as poetic meaning, and not objective truth. We're not dealing with objective truth. We're dealing with more of a poetic meaning, a juxtapositioning of images along with quotes from philosophers, quotes from poets, quotes from novels, quotes wherever Andrés has pulled the quotes out. And we are exploring more of a conceptual type of thinking, an abstract kind of thinking, disassociated from original meanings, where you have to create, you have to you have to create make the connection between what's being said and what's being shown. And hopefully that creates a different sort of interpretation of what you've seen and what you've experienced, more of an internal one, not an external one. Our Oracle is set up pretty much like this. It's a pretty simple setup. We have a touch screen. John has programmed the touch screen, and it's a projector, and it interacts with a database, a database of several different video clips. What is it, 130 we have now? And we're keep 138, and we're building it. We're going to keep building it. Right now it's all in Spanish because it's going to Cuba. But after the Havana Biennial, we'll turn it into an English version too. And then you kind of touch the screen. You're asked to come up. The screen glows, and I'll show you an example of that in a minute. The screen glows, the hand glows, it's sand, and right away, and we've tested it out, not a lot, but we've tested it out, and people right away know what to do. They know it's almost like, and my wife, who's totally technically illiterate for the most part, she knew right away what to do. It just sort of, the hand glows, and I'll show it to you in a minute. So, content in form of video response, data combinations that answer to the interaction, the consulting of the participants. And you get this clip that has, so the project combines data creation, programming, design, a little video, some video art, and in an esoteric concept. And this is an example of what you would experience when you're walking into the
How will you interact with it? How will you work?
So this, I don't know if you can hear, hopefully you'll be able to hear. So the hand's glowing like you see. It's a touch screen, it's sand, water's coming in and out because obviously it's called the sea snail, the seashell oracle. Hey, come on in. So you come in and touch the hand, the water washes it away. It activates a video that tells you what you're supposed to do.
Esto es como un sueño. Que todos
You want to interpret?
pero que no podemos aún entender.
You have to go
Escribe
through the
una
whole thing. I can't
palabra
pause it.
o haz un dibujo en la arena. Al concluir,
So it's asking to draw a word or draw write a word or draw a picture in the sun to the audience. This is an experience that we all have dreamed, but we cannot really understand. Please write a word or draw a picture in the sun. When you finish, touch the shell, that little shell, to start the oracle. And that shell show up in 4 different places and activate variables. It's a variable that activates the chance operation that leads to the movie.
Okay. Let me get out of here and go back to the keynote. Boom. So, and then what happens then in this image, he's written a word, and it activates a video clip that has a saying with it. And I'll show you some examples of that. What happens then is we collect either the words or the drawings that are drawn in the sand, we print them out, and we start collecting these and start stringing them along, almost like prayer flags around the perimeter of the experience. So we're documenting and archiving what people have written or what people have drawn. So when they come back, they can see their drawings, and we start collecting these as an archive. And then whether it be words or whether it be pictures like this. This is one of the clips that would be activated after you've touched the seashell in the
a
center.
veces se aprende más de las abejas que de los aviones.
Sometimes you learn more from the bees than from planes.
Every clip is about roughly 30 to 40 seconds long. The saying is done twice. They give people a little bit more time to think about it and hear it again.
A veces se aprende más de las abejas que de los aviones.
Next clip, I'm going to go through a couple different clips for you.
Tú eres tu propio santuario. El altar está en cualquier lugar donde te arrodilles.
So you are your own sanctuary. The altar is everywhere you kneel.
Most of the clips Most all the clips. This is from footage my last documentary.
Tú eres
India.
tu propio santuario.
Andrés has a video artist, so he has a lot of clips as well.
Donde te arrodillas.
We've got clips from our own work, and we also have gotten clips out of archives. Some of the images are older, formats different. So I'm going through a little, like this is pretty abstract. It's pretty strange.
Malditos testigos son ojos y oídos para los hombres, si estos no entienden su lenguaje.
Translate?
I don't understand the meaning.
What the hell is he saying?
No, it's
Malditos testigos son ojos y oídos para los hombres, si estos no entienden su lenguaje.
it's like bad witness are eyes and ears for humankind if they don't understand their language.
Cool. Another piece I got from India when I was there shooting my documentary.
Con límites, uno recrea la experiencia humana. Sin límites, uno solo juega a ser Dios.
With limits, you recreate the human experience. Without limits, you only play to be God. Now, the individuals going to
Con
war
límites,
are going by
uno
themselves.
recrea la
Are
experiencia
not
humana.
united. They have to get into
Sin
an
límites,
alone.
uno solo
They can
juega a
experience each
ser
of these and then
Dios.
walk out. So every person walking to this will be absolutely alone in this space, experiencing this clip. And then they are not allowed to come in again until next day. So they have to take that with them. It's not an open screen, it's just one experience.
Todo movimiento está compuesto de una infinita serie de constantes interrupciones.
All movement is composed of a constant series of interruptions.
That's a good one. Again, this was taken out of a
Todo
documentary I had several years ago on
está
the
compuesto
Iraq
de una
War.
infinita serie de constantes interrupciones.
Next, I think there's the last one. And then after you're done, the oracle comes back on.
Gracias.
Says thank you for participating and experiencing this. And that's about it. You want to talk about the technology a little bit, John?
So what we're doing, since we don't know the word that they're writing, some of the variables we're using is how much space of the screen they take up when they write. If it's cursive or printed, we can find out if they're writing or drawing a picture. How fast it takes them from the second they start to the second, and then what shell they decide to pick. So we mix all those variables together, and then that dictates what group of videos we pull from.
Yeah. And so the touch screen is just a typical.
And since we have no idea what we're in for over there, everything's real basic equipment, no internet, it's all standalone stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty basic. So we're taking the projector, we're taking the touch screen, and we're taking the computer, and then a little powered speaker, and that's about it. That's pretty much our technology.
The environment's kind of cool. If you want to talk about.
Yeah, I don't have any images, but Andreas said initially we were placed outside. We had to set this up outside, and so okay, so Havana is right next to the ocean, right? So you can imagine the technology outside. We're looking at tents, and then we were moved into a bus station, which is right next to the military headquarters.
It's a national bus. It's not like a bus station.
It's like a national.
It's a national lobby for all the buses coming from Cuba everywhere. So it's a huge space, and the lobby of that was going to be where the installation. The reason for this is because the Havana Biennial decided that this year they're not going to do gallery shows. They're going to do. The city was going to be the gallery. It's an attitude that they have for a long time. thinking, so every piece, none of the pieces will be in a gallery space. All the pieces has to be in the public, accessing and interacting with the public. So the bus terminal was chosen as the first one. The issue there was that it was too exposed, and also a political issue because the guys wearing the green shirt of the military, and this station is right in front of the Minister of Defense, could be malinterpreted or wrong interpreted. So they asked us to change the color of the shirt, which through visual effects at the Art Institute we could do. So we can make that shirt pink and I told them, we'll change the shirt color. And then they said, no, we'll move you to the lobby of the National Library, which is very interesting. It's a dome, like a big dome, like a, you know, the Pope could speak. So we have this dome tent where all this is happening. It's a tent that we're decorating with symbols and where we're going to hang the input of the people with the drawings and the words. So we'll see how the acoustic work there and how our piece interact with that particular space. Because all the shows are going to be out in the street, no gallery.
Yeah. So because we moved away from the the fenced building, we were able to keep the color of the shirt. Didn't have to change it, which was interesting. And it was sort of ties in this thing why we changed the name from the Oracle of Che to just the.
The other thing that I want to say is that the Che connection remains because that is Che, 80-something years old. Che is dead. He died when he was 30. But the whole idea is that he come back as an oracle to talk to his people after he died and after many changes has been going on in Cuba and the understanding of Che is the main symbol of the revolution, the main hope of the revolution since the 60s. Of course, after the embargo, after so many things, Cuban society doesn't have the same idea or experience with the revolution and with the world. So Che comes back, transformed into more like a guru, a virtual guru. And you see the head has the symbol, a communist symbol, put in a circle in a more holistic style. So that represents a different thing, a different understanding of the world. It's not just a communist sign, it's something else. So he come back with what he will say to his people, to the audience, is up to interpretation now. What he will say now after all the ideals that he had in the 60s is different. It's a different thing. It's a comment on Cuban society as well, you know, because he come back with a more open-minded interpretation of the world. That has to do with art, doesn't have to do with politics. Well, art has to do with politics, but that doesn't have to do with partisan politics.
And what's interesting is if and when we change this to an English version, we can't use Che anymore. We're going to have to use a different character. What that character may be is yet we have to figure it out yet. We have to determine. Maybe John F. Kennedy, maybe Marilyn Monroe. Who knows? You know, given out the words of wisdom from the grave.
But the idea was also to put the character of Che, because the image has been so appropriated like Jesus. The idea was to say, well, let's do our own Che, and we projected. That's his Che. That's his Che. If you compare the face, there's like very in progressive time. So that is Che, what will be like 50 years after or 60 years after that photograph. That is him coming back as a virtual guru. But that's based on his face. So we did this synthetic, we did this mask, and we wear the mask, but all is based on his original face from another photograph.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. When we were testing, people were making connections. What they drew and what they heard,
Yeah.
the video, they were connecting everything.
Yeah, and my wife, like I said, she's technology, she doesn't get it at all. But she got that, and she drew the balloon, and she made the connection, but she's also a conceptual thinker. A lot of people won't, like, I know, like, I bet you if you did it in this...
Salvador did as well.
Well, Salvador's like that, because, you know, he comes from that. But if you can't think in that abstract conceptual way, it'll be hard, you go, what does that mean? Or what's that? Because it doesn't mean, it means only what you want it to mean, your personal interpretation. It's a creative interpretation of the juxtaposition of the words and the image that not necessarily combine, they don't come together so easily. It creates a third sort of idea in your head. Again, much like, and Andrew, you're a filmmaker, so you know, you've heard of montage theory, Eisenstein, the White theory of montage, attraction, intellectual montage, that kind of stuff. The same idea. Same idea. You one image of this, an image A and an image B, and it creates a third idea in your head. Yeah.
Speaking of which, you said you're interpreting the drawing or the text, are you trying to assign some sort of particular meaning based on what they're drawing? Or whether they're drawing?
Yeah, not particularly. I mean, we divide in an obscure way. It's time, space. You know, it's real vague. So at this point, we're not. We're letting it up for interpretation of the audience.
It's much more of a free association, free
But
interpretation.
it's totally adaptable in any way. So you theoretically could theme all the videos in each category as to space.
But the sayings are connected. The sayings are connected to the image. The quotes, the sayings, the whatever Andrés has picked out, he's definitely put a lot of work into looking at the image and trying to match something according to how he sees a connection. Yeah. So we came up. You came up with a bunch of images too. I've come up with a ton of images, but Andrés has come up with most of the quotes and matching quotes and matching the words with a particular image.
And then I change it all in the end. I'm sorry, I'm just kidding. I deleted it all.
It's a game after all.
That's right.
It is. So it is, and it's meant to be. It's meant to be fun. It's meant to be sort of a loose kind of, very simple kind of experience. But when you walk out, hopefully you'll think about it, and that's the whole idea. We're not teaching you anything. It's not about teaching. It's not about anything like that.
Perhaps I can contextualize a little bit.
Please do. Yeah.
If you're not.
No, I'm fini. Yeah.
Okay, so my name is Andrés. I direct the film and the visual effects program at the Art Institute, and it's been a pleasure to work with John and Ralph in this piece. We have worked together in a video installation a long time ago.
For years.
And we kept in touch through the years. My experience with the piece is I've been going to Cuba since 2008. The first time that I went to Cuba was for a video festival in Camagüey, which is a little province at the interior of Cuba. And to me it was fascinating to go to a place that doesn't have any technology where they wanted to make a video art festival. It's like going to Macondo or to what is like in Search of the Lost Steps by who did Carpenter. It's like, what are they going to do? Video art in a place which is very colonial. They don't have technology. And then many stories come from that visit. Since then, I kind of became fascinated with Cuba and Cuban people, made very good friends. And through the work done there, I became in touch with Havana. And the Havana, they have the Wilfredo Lam Center, which are the directors of the biennial. They are in charge of the biennial. So, and I did some presentation at the Wilfredo Lam Center in Havana, which is the main center, and I started thinking to do a piece that represents the mood in Cuba, because going to Cuba is like going to another world. They are very isolated. They still have those cars from the 50s, you have seen them, and they have a whole different understanding of technology, which is lacking of technology, but people who have access to technology, because families send laptops, they can deconstruct this technology because they don't have the usual pragmatic uses in society. Somebody take a Max XP and they do a whole crazy editing that reveal the interior of Max XP. They don't use it for a particular purpose, they play with it. So it was fascinating, but at the same time it's sad because they're stuck in time. And the mood in Cuba, this was last in 2013, before the new developments with this administration, has been for 30 years, what's going to happen? What's the future? Where are we going to go? So I said, the mood in this town, in these countries of expectancy, the hopes, and at the same time of uncertainty, constant uncertainty of what's going to happen. They're not in control of their own destiny because they have Castro, who has been in power for 60 years, and they decide without major participation of the citizens. The citizens cannot establish an independent business, etc., etc. So I say, I wish I can come up with a piece that can represent this sense of uncertainty in this society. And I said, what better than an oracle? An oracle can tell these people whatever. It's almost like a consolation prize where they can come and receive input, even if it's a playful thing, or even if maybe they will take it seriously. A lot of people, when we presented the project at the Havana, the curators didn't like it because they have their own oracles in Cuba, which is usually done with the lagoon, with like shells.
Yeah.
And they say, oh, he's taking over our, he's doing folklorism. He's taking our things, our traditions, and making it into something. And I said, well, it could be any kind of oracle. It doesn't have to be, because at the beginning it was the seashell oracle, which represent that Oraculo Caracol, which is still named, but you play with shells in a different way. And what better to have a symbol of hope from the past to come back from his death, like Che Guevara. But Che Guevara, that we can make our own Che Guevara. As a matter of fact, the idea is not to tell the people that that is Che Guevara 50 years later, or 60 years later. We maybe will let it discover slowly, but we don't want that to be on the open. And that's how the idea of an oracle will become. But the thing is that in my own interest, it comes, the piece comes from understanding games, video games, as art. I'm not interested in video games as entertainment. It's really boring to me. I like the interactivity of video games as art and put it in that context. The other thing is narratives with open-ended, with participation of the public. And I think the interactivity of games allow to do these kind of things. And that is something that comes from video, single channel videos that I've worked before, where the people had to interpret, just like Ralph says, metaphors, concatenations, juxtapositions, psychologically. But here we go one step farther and we do it interactive, so the audience can determine the narrative, the content of the narrative, and trigger certain relationships. And that's using the techniques of cybernetics and computer programming. And finally, the blurring of the limits and perhaps the hybridization of social practices, such as the oracle, such as video games, such as film, all blend together to create a new form of human interactivity, and perhaps get into new knowledge through the blending of these things. And that is influenced by video art and installations, video art installations, where you blend several elements to create these things. And also by Marcel Duchamp, the ready-mades by Marcel Duchamp, they're pretty much the same thing, but instead of using objects, we use social practices. And mixing those social practices together, we get something else. And that to me is very fascinating. And the idea of having the audience input to come out at the same time that they are doing the input to the installation, the result of their input is capturing the data we printed and we exhibit it outside our tent, our habitat. That determines certain characteristics that we can compare later on. If we show this piece, let's say in Pittsburgh, what are people going to say? What are they going to draw compared to what they did in Cuba? Right? Or we show it in Chile or New York. That to me is fascinating to see, okay, what are they saying? Because it reveals a little bit in this intimate place, it reveals what they're feeling. So in Cuba, perhaps you're going to have to do some censorship, if somebody says, well, I don't know, we have to. We can just put it there and leave, except that the equipment will stay there. But that to me is also an interesting piece because it singularizes the social experience of every situation where the oracle is installed. Yeah. So that I'm looking forward to that. For us, that's the reward for us, more than the readings and all that. To me, at least that it could be like something like excrement, You go in and then the machine poop this out, and you get it, and you put it out.
It was so poetic after that. It was so intellectual.
No, it is intellectual. But it's just a word.
Maybe take it down to...
Did you record that? So it's like, well, there's that's the piece, and we're leaving on May 18th, so in 2 weeks. We'll stay there for 2 weeks.
Yeah, stay there for 2 weeks. Yes.
On the subject of the context of where you're presenting this, I know you mentioned you're going to be printing out the drawings or the words. Are they going to be able to see those before they go in to the oracle? Or
Well,
after?
from the people, let's say if you go today, the people who was yesterday, they will see the prints of the people yesterday. Okay. Of course, they draw it, the machine capture the data. We go back to the hotel, maybe during that night, we print it. We don't want to have the printer there, we just print it later and bring it back the next day and put it around. So this started growing. Because the first day you will have, 10, next day 30, till you get to 100. And that's the count how many people go in.
Yeah.
But they'll see the previous day, so they'll be maybe building on it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a good point. Good point.
The habitat is like this, and we're going to surround the habitat with these with these papers. So we would,
In the library is a very busy place in Cuba. You don't buy books in Cuba. It's not like here where you can go to bookstores. I mean, they have them, but not only, they're free, and money's tight. In Cuba.
well, the embargo doesn't allow for many products so to go in. So everything is very limited. So there's a lot of sharing, a lot of public book goes many hands. A movie, if they get a movie, let's say, when I went down there with these students, they told me, oh, my influence are Tarkovsky, Bergman, and Peter Greenaway in the middle of Cuba in like a colonial town. I wish my students would say that.
Yeah, I know. I don't know any of my students ever seen Tarkovsky.
What? Where do you get this information? A friend of ours went to the United States and brought DVDs, and then they share it, and they get all these ideas. So it's a big hunger for all this knowledge that it's fascinating. Really.
The coolest thing about this to me is we're just giving people as many choices. We're giving them a bunch of choices. It's like giving them a bunch of ends of strings. Like we're giving them a piece of video, a quote, the images from the outside, their interpretation, the environment. We're giving them all these pieces, and then they tie the strings together and make their own experience.
Or not.
Or not. But I just think that's so cool that we give them all these, and then depending on their interpretation and their way of thinking, is how they make their connection.
And I think they will. I think they'll probably make more connections. I think there. I think it will.
Well, the whole
find
issue with the Oracle is that they don't give you an answer. I mean, cheap Oracle tells you you'll be happy today. Oh, okay. But another Oracle tells you, the sun is green and maybe your shoes are dirty, and then you have to go home with it. What is that? And then you have to make sense through thinking. The idea is to activate the thinking mechanism and throw all stuff out there. But also, I think that people there will be very curious because it's kind of like a silent society to see these drawings and words that people will do. I think that's the reason why they moved us to the library, the National Library, and didn't want it in a public space. I think that they say, well, the library is more safe because it's related to literature, in a way saying, a library is like a sanctuary, But in a public space, people can get, oh, look at this.
So you say they're more safe in the sense they're not outspoken about too many things because they can be arrested for being too outspoken.
Yeah, it happened 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Still. But the thing is, here you just kill, but there they arrest you.
Yeah. All right, I think that's our time. But Andrew, you can keep talking. Yeah.